Call the meeting of the commission to order. We have, we're expecting 13 of the 19, so we have a quorum. And right now, we're missing Paul Badillo, but he's on his way in from LA. He said he would be late. And we haven't heard from Guillermo. But we have a quorum right now to begin the meeting, so we can do that. So, calling to order, and I've asked Gerald Adams if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, good. I wasn't ready for that. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gerald. Okay, the agenda has been posted, sir.
It has, Mr. Chairman.
All righty, we'll do the roll call. Nadia?
Commissioners: Adams,
Here.
Altman excused, Breslin,
Present.
Burke,
Here.
Budillo, late, Clarkson,
Here.
Corcoran excused, Dada,
Here.
Feldman,
Here.
Freeman,
Yep.
Hedrick,
Here.
Hearn excused, Hughes excused, Jones,
Here.
Battison excused, Pye,
Here.
Reeson,
Here.
Schmitz excused, and Swear.
Terrific. We have quorum. We'll do the approval of the, public comments. Didn't see any public comments. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of our meeting of September the 11th. You've had those in advance and hopefully you've read them. Any changes or additions or corrections?
So moved.
Move adoption by Aftab. Second? Ken? So we have first and second, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? All right. We're next to the chairman's report. And what I wanted to do first was introduce City Council member and good friend, J.R. Roberts. J.R. is joining us this morning, and I thought I'd take a quick moment, J.R., since you're not rerunning for election. Did you want to say a couple of things? This is an opportunity to one of the commissions here.
Well, no, I prefer to actually hear from the commission. So all I would say at leaving city council seat is thank you. You know, we can't do what we do without the boards and commissions. And I don't have to tell you that the airport commission is very, very integral and important to the way the city operates and how our brand is perceived all over the world. And you guys do a great job. And I just wanted to have that moment to say that to you. Thank you.
Well, great, thank you,
But
J.R.
also note that JR is the airport liaison to the board, that's why.
Yeah, I wasn't here just to give you love. I actually have a reason.
Right.
Not bad, yeah, first time in 4 years.
Wow.
See, that's
Oh my God.
Aftab, that's
So
why
here it comes.
That's why I did not want to introduce him as the liaison to the airport commission. I didn't want to embarrass anybody. So anyway, J.R., thank you, and you're welcome.
You bet.
Other comments that I make under my chairman's report, I just wanted to say I've had a chance to take Contour Air, our new service from Palm Springs to Sacramento. I did this 2 weeks ago. In fact, I'm taking it again tomorrow at 1 o'clock. It's an incredible experience. Some of you were here for the launch, you may have had a chance to go onto the plane. It's 30 seats. They're all like first class seats. It's just an amazing, amazing experience. I don't know what else to tell you. And so I'm taking him tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And because of my schedule, I'll be returning on United via Palm Springs via LA into Palm Springs. But so if you get a chance and you have business up there and you can arrange to land around 2:30 in the afternoon, please give it a try. I just thought I'd throw that in. It was just really quite an experience. Just a couple of other things. You had distributed, and again, Nadia sent to us, I think yesterday, day before, a memorandum from Jeff Clarkson about the noise committee. And when we get to that item on the agenda, Jeff is actually going to lead a discussion. It's item 11. But I just did want to point out, if you didn't have a chance to read the additional item sent to you, it is on your email. Item 14A is the city council actions. What Nadia has added, really very helpful, under each item is the web address, so that after each item, in case you need more detail, you can actually click on that and go straight to the item and learn more about that discussion. So that's a very, very helpful thing. Thank you, Nadia, to do that, because there's a lot of items on there. I might note that the City Council did approve the 7-month extension of the airport concession, but I suspect maybe that'll come up a little bit later. But that was one of interest to the Commission, has been of interest to the Commission for several months. Then I've asked Tom, as the Executive Director, to continue to give a monthly update on the capital projects like the ticket wing, the baggage, as well as the car rental, and any other items. We're going to have a discussion. There's an item coming up a little bit later. The last thing has been our history. We've asked each commissioner to share maybe 2 or 3 minutes about who they are, and I've called on both Aftab and David Feltman. So we'll start with Aftab. Tell us who you are and why you're here.
That would be interesting.
Good morning, everyone. I came into the desert 31 years ago and was the main architect behind bringing the first Hilton brand in the Cachao Valley. Since then, we've had been very fortunate and been leading year after year in the market. Currently, I sit on, maybe I'll forget a couple of the boards that I sit on. So I'm the president of the Palm Springs Hospitality and Restaurant Association. I'm the chairman of PS Resorts. I'm the president of Tour de Palm Springs, the annual bike ride in the city of Palm Springs. I'm on the executive board of the Greater Palm Springs Convention and Visitors Bureau. I'm the vice chair of the Greater Palm Springs Foundation. I'm on the board of the Boys and Girls Club of Palm Springs. I'm on the board of the Palm Springs Chamber of Commerce. I also host and head the chair for the general manager's weekly breakfast every Wednesday. That's why we have a conflict once in a while that I don't show up. And I'm also the vice chair of the Palm Springs Police Officers Association, and I think I forgot something else, and I'm also a part-time employee of the Hilton.
Aftab, no theater, really.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the board and the committee to revitalize the beautiful 1936 Palm Springs Theater, and our goal is to raise those funds and hopefully get it done within the next couple of years.
And the theater's name is?
J.R. Roberts.
See, what's not being
You're on that, you're on the Plaza Theater.
Yeah. What's not being said here, the undercurrent is JR, that's what he's going to be doing after retirement from the City Council. He's already been working on trying to raise the funds to continue the Plaza
And I
Theater.
forgot, I'm also the commissioner of the Palm Springs Airport Commission.
Okay, thank you. Well, as you can see, Aftab, I mean, he's a perfect match for the Airport Commission. A lot of it has to do with bringing in events, which bring in people, which reuses the airport. So it's very, very critical, the work that you've done, Aftab. Thank you. So David,
Yes.
you're next.
Morning, everybody. Let's see, my background, both personally and professionally, aligned with the mission of the airport, which on the personal side, I'm a kind of a global traveler, having been to about 110 countries and territories at this point. And just hit my 2 million mile mark on one of the carriers that flies into PSP. So spent a fair amount of time on airplanes. Quite familiar with this airport, of course. And professionally, I got my start in politics as a teenager, pounding the pavement in my home county in northern New Jersey. Went on to work on Capitol Hill in Washington and worked for several Democratic members of the House, mostly on foreign affairs, international relations issues, but obviously involved in the policy process. Also ran 3 congressional campaigns, including one where I had to go in and tell my boss if he didn't change his campaign strategy really quickly. He was going to be unemployed in a couple of weeks, and he was like, well, you can go to Queens and run the campaign then. And so that was a quick turnaround, and we won. I went on from there into direct mail fundraising for nonprofits. And that is where I learned discipline of marketing, and did that for several years, maybe a decade or so. And sort of on a whim, in 2000, I applied for a job in a institutional asset manager that focused on index investing. I went into the interview not knowing what an index was. I was extremely naive, but I got the job, and that was with Barclays Global Investors, a subsidiary of Barclays Bank in London. And I was part of a startup within the larger business, which was the iShares ETF business. And it was through that business that I really learned the discipline of large corporate marketing enterprises. I wrapped up that career and traveled around the world for a year until coming to Palm Springs, where I've been involved in the vacation rental community and involved in local politics. And as I think many of you know, including I was the co-manager of the No on Measure C campaign, which was the effort to ban vacation rentals in Palm Springs, which would have harmed our economy here immensely. And so that brought me to think about next steps after Measure C was done, and given my passion for tourism, hospitality in Palm Springs, I consider myself a personal ambassador to tourists here in town. Whenever I'm at the supermarket, and obviously you can't know for sure, but sometimes you hear people chatting or at other places in town, and I really feel like it's each of our responsibilities to welcome people into our community, to offer them information, and to really make their experience a wonderful one. So I think that's kind of the human side of what I sort of bring to our community, besides all the politics and all of that stuff which we all love.
Well, thank you, Dave. That was very helpful.
That's it.
All right, moving on, introductions and presentations. Mr. Nolan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder, we put the bottled water stations in, and we got a nice note from my wife, Connie, and I are traveling from PSP today. Connie very much appreciates the installation of water filling stations. And Jan, thank you for sharing that. Well, Jan's not here today, so.
This is your wife in the picture?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, this is from Jan Smith. Somebody shared that with us, so I thought that was very nice.
No other introductions or presentations at this point? All right. Then we move to the city manager report.
Good morning,
Mr.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple items I just wanted to note. First, on the meeting of the 23rd council meeting, they moved the meeting back for a week, the 23rd. We plan on having just a discussion item only on concession. We're going to update council on this concessions. We're going to provide them your recommendation that you voted on, and then they get their general guidance on if they want to move forward in that direction, to give us guidance to finalize the RFP so we can get that out on the street. So there'll just be a general discussion on the 23rd. Certainly you're all welcome to join us. The second reason, and a larger issue I wanted to raise, and that's why I asked Councilman Roberts to join us. We're ready to embark on this whole Tickling project. It's one of the largest ones we've done. Well, until you do the rental car.
Yeah, that's right.
So you got a lot going on here, a lot on your plate. But as you know, we're always sensitive to if we need to do some modifications and fine tuning. And this one here, the particular issue we have with seasonality was a bit of a concern, obviously in discussion with the consultant and Tom's staff. And it started to make sense in the sense of we're embarking on this construction during high season. And I've been talking with JR and briefed him on this. And so what I want to do is I want to just sort of an idea that we have, and the consultant is going to give you some significant detail, as will Tom. I just want to open by saying that the idea of going forward and having issues during the season, because in essence we're going from, 6 bag handler machines to 2, and the construction, that it's in our interest potentially to move the front of the house, the majority of that construction, to after season, mid-March, late March. However, there's a cost to that. Now, the next lowest bidder, we chose Swinnerton, the next lowest bidder to do that was about $1.4 million. And we didn't take that $1.4 million additional cost. In working with Sid Swinnerton, I let
Owner's rep, Joe Jackson.
Joe from RSNH explain the discussions he's had with them. They have a price that's significantly less than that, and it's roughly around the $700,000-800,000. But we may be able to even get that down more. But I just want to throw that out there to you because I'm concerned if we don't do this, we're going to have a big issue on our hands during high season. So that being said, I'm going to turn over to the consultant, Joe Jackson and Tom, and they can give you some more of the specifics, and then JR might want to comment as well.
Joe, come on up front, introduce yourself first, tell them about yourself a little bit.
So my name is Joe Jackson. I'm with RSNH. RSNH is an infrastructure development firm practicing throughout the United States. And most of you know RSNH, whether you realize it or not. How many of you remember seeing the Kennedy Space Center when the big Atlas rockets launched to the moon? And the space shuttle program. Everything that didn't fly at Kennedy is an RSNH design, from the vertical assembly building to the big tractor that transports the rocket to the launch platform. My job in RSNH as vice president is much less glamorous. I just work at airports, O'Hare, Chicago Midway, Dallas Fort Worth, Houston, a lot of work at San Francisco, working at LAX, and proud to be back at Palm Springs. Our firm actually designed the rehabilitation of your GA runway several years ago, perimeter fence, intrusion detection system. So we're really excited about this opportunity to be your construction manager and your owner's rep for the ticketing lobby project. It's a vital project. We understand it cannot interfere with the quality of the passenger experience at Palm Springs. We understand that this airport has a very high season and a shoulder season. And we have been working with Swinnerton to better address that issue. When they proposed in their bid, they wanted to plow right through the high season, open up the ticketing lobby, tear out the bag inspection equipment, just like David said, and it would degrade the quality of service. So we've been in intense negotiation with Swinnerton on that issue. And the good thing, there's two really good pieces of news. David told you the first part. They can adjust their schedule and still be over $400,000 less than the second low bid. So that's a good piece of news. The second good piece of news is Swinnerton is a quality construction firm. You might remember them from the tower that was constructed several years ago. They have one of the oldest licenses as a contractor in California and have a reputation for doing quality work. So they have the horsepower, the bonding capacity, the depth of team to undertake the project in a really, really effective way. So we're excited about this opportunity, and we think we're going to get this thing done without undue impact to...
So, but can you explain a little bit of how that would manifest? What would that option, how would it manifest?
Including a timeline if it's possible.
Yeah, well, so what's going to need to happen is we have contract with Swinnerton. We have to make an adjustment in that contract to add about $800,000 to the contract. And what Swinnerton will do is they will delay start of actual construction at the airport until the spring. And in the meantime, they're going to fabricate this very complicated bag inspection system. About half the cost of the job is the conveyors, the inspection equipment, the steel that supports it, and it's a long lead time item. It takes 6 or 7 months to have it completely assembled in the factory and ready to be installed. So they'll focus on that off-site and then visible to the airport, and we'll watch over that work. And then in late March, early April, they'll open up the building and start working in such a way that while we'll have a reduction in the number of ticketing counters and inspection capacity, that will happen when the airlines have pulled back their service for the low season. And then it's going to be a sprint over the summer to get as much of that work done before the season starts again in October, November. anytime you do construction work, I'll tell you right now, it's like open heart surgery. You know, you're rehabilitating a building, there may be some surprises, but we think with Swinnerton and the good preparations the city and the airport has done in their construction documents, we've got our best shot to get it done in a way that you'll be proud of it.
Let's put it in context. So the first thing I said, no, absolutely not. How could we ever spend more money? Why would we do that? That's silly. And I resisted this for quite a while. But talk about if we don't do it. So that's what is the convincing and persuasive argument. So talk about if we don't do it and what we're faced with.
So if we don't make this change in the contract, Swinnerton has the right to go into the ticketing lobby and take half of the ticketing positions down during high season. And they would disrupt about half to 2/3 of the outbound bag inspection equipment. And the resultant, Tom can speak to it, but as an airport professional, it'd be chaotic, if you can imagine. You know, people coming in with their oversized bags and trying to get the flights out with, 50 to 30% of the capacity. It's just no way that could happen. So
there's two, besides the compressed into the hallway area, the
Right.
back of the house on the baggage.
the baggage system goes
So
down.
talk to us about that. What does that mean going from 6 to 2?
Well,
Well, we have the highest rate of oversized bag in the United States according to the TSA. A lot of golf clubs, oversized bags, and so forth. We need all 6 machines running at full capacity in order to have the sufficient throughput
Right.
so that those aircraft can be loaded with bags and get off the gate on time. If we do anything less than that, we compromise the integrity of the flight terminal.
I have a silly question. I mean, why wasn't that considered in the very first place? I mean, why did we even contemplate starting peak season when those issues are obvious? So, I mean, why are we all of a sudden in the position we need to change it, going to cost us money, when in my book, that should have been contemplated in the first place, not to start this in the high season?
Well, what's
It's the right question.
a couple things happened. We did pre-qualification of 4 contractors. During the pre-bid process, 2 of the contractors dropped out of the process.
Right.
I remember that. We were surprised, so we're down to 2 contractors. And I think everybody realizes contractors are very busy around the United States, and this is considered a small job. When we got the bids, Swinnerton, who constructed the tower, was very savvy in how they crafted their bid in a way that gave them some latitude to start earlier than not, where the other bid recognized that, hey, you have a May start, we're going to run some extra overtime and do the compression schedule. So we're dealing with the Swinnerton contract issue, and we're going to pay the extra $800,000, which is still 50% less than what we have with the 1.1 million. Makes sense.
So, on the tail of that, we can still do it based on the original Swinnerton bid and contract. The reality is that it will create huge delays and people missing flights. And we can't afford that. We don't think it's worth it.
No, I totally agree.
No,
But we knew that before.
The reason I'm bringing that up is when we recognize what had happened with that, in Swinnerton's mind, they don't see that as a real problem. For us, that's a real problem. We have a stellar reputation as an operation for an airport, and we have a brand that we can't fool around with, right? This is where people come to unwind, not to get wound back up. So that's how this all came about, and that's why we're here to talk to you about it, because we looked at a number of ways of solving this problem. And there were some calls, and Dr. Reddy and I met last night to discuss some issues. And Dr. Reddy had come up with a solution that I thought made sense to bring to City Council, but I wanted to make sure you all knew about this and get your take on it before I took it to the next level. And so, Dr. Reddy, I think you're best to kind of explain why you think this one solution works the best and how you might mitigate some of the costs later on.
Yeah, now Joe's continuing to work with Swinnerton to reduce that cost, even right.
Maybe.
Right, we have, this interpretation that Swinnerton used to come in, and it was gamesmanship. It's clear in our mind it was gamesmanship. And we believe the airport has a moral high ground and are going to negotiate this change as aggressively as we possibly can. So we look at the 800 as maybe the high water mark, and our intention is to drive it into a lower number. We're going to review all of their acceleration charges to make sure we're not paying a premium for something that's already included in the bid. We know the places where Swinnerton will try and put forward to make that argument, and we'll merge at the other side with a well-informed airport staff before any decision is made, and move forward the direction of the city.
Now, the alternative to that is you can just throw it all out and start over. But what we realized what we would get is the bids would still be in that compressed construction time. And so you're not going to necessarily get any better bid. But what we have, the insight is that the next lowest bid that was in that compressed time was $1.4 million more. So that's why probably this is the better alternative than the starting.
Fiscally and from a schedule standpoint.
I mean, ideally, we would have loved to have said, Swinnerton, thank you, but no thank you. But at this point, they still make the most sense financially, even with this change. We also know that they're an excellent contractor. We feel confident that they'll do the job, and we have a history with them. And if you follow any major projects in California, well, all over the country for that matter, Swinnerton is well known and very respected. And again, our next option is 1.4 higher, so it didn't make sense at that point. But you had some other thoughts.
I would comment, if you went to through all the bids out and went through a rebid process, we're seeing 4 to 5% inflation in construction costs right now. So a year from now, when you come back in, your best bid is going to be 4 to 5% higher than your best bid this year.
What is the estimated completion time?
Go ahead, you want to talk to that?
They have 490, and I haven't seen it at the moment, less than 500 calendar days to complete the project.
The 80% of the entire project will be done November of next year.
Right.
Which is the full upper level and the consolidated baggage handling
Correct.
system. The remaining piece would be the south end, which is just a feeder into that. If anything bleeds, that will bleed into maybe season, but we will have sufficient counter space and a brand new baggage handling system to follow.
And I would note that it might be important, Swinnerton gave us 3 options. This was, could you just explain, just briefly, there was 3 options. This is the least expensive.
Correct.
The other 2, what were those and what would they have accomplished?
So they gave us a second option that would have been 1.2 million, which it has some technical adjustments to the back of house to allow the bag carts to circulate a little bit more efficiently. It doesn't gain us up very much in terms of the front of house, and it doesn't really change, it doesn't make a significant improvement over the 800,000 option.
And it disrupts a little more and it costs more.
It costs more. And then the third option was to build a temporary facility to move all of the equipment out. And that had a very significant schedule impact, because anytime you do a tent or a sprung structure, it's got to meet all the codes, got to go through all the approvals, and it's very, very expensive.
And I doubt there's 3 things with respect to the money. So although we don't like it, we have the money to make the change and do it. The money-
And who is the we, JR?
Well,
There's 3
The city.
sources, the PFC was,
City.
yeah.
Who else would it be?
he needs the airport.
There's-
This is Al. This is Al Sensitive.
I know, yeah.
So
I'm always waiting for you guys to say write the check, but nobody write the
So
check.
the other factor that you probably haven't made clear enough is we're not done negotiating with them. So we feel that they need to take some responsibility in this. How far will we get? Do they know that they're still in the best position for this job and for where we are with it? Yeah, they know that. So it doesn't leave us in the best place to negotiate, but we're going to try anyway. And Dr. Reddy can tell you one last thing on the finances.
Well, we are going to be applying to the FAA for a change order, which would be covered. So ideally, that will be covered in the end.
That's right.
But obviously, that's going to be a reimbursement.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, this is about their labor, so we're going to ask them for all the evidence.
Right.
Probably, that 800 is likely to stand, it'll be a not to exceed, And then as they go along and accrue the cost, we will audit that to see if the end result is less money, then we will pay less money and substantiate that to the FAA.
Chairman Al Jones, are you looking for a motion from this commission?
It wasn't.
Well, there's
I think
nothing
this is-
formal
it's just
on
a
the
discussion.
agenda
No.
now, and because this is all happening fast now, there are a couple things we can do. One, what council did is they added the additional dollars into the capital budget for the change orders, which sufficiently cover this. And they approved authority of up to $1.5 million. So we can do that. However, I am going to send it to council as an information item so everyone's aware. So I want to make you aware. Now, there's a couple things we could do. Because we have to get moving with the Swinnerton contract, delaying this formal action to your next meeting a month from now wasn't really feasible or possible. Now, the option is we could have a special meeting and actually you could agendize it and vote on it one way or the other as a recommendation to council. That's an option. If you would like to do that, we're happy to proceed that way. Or you can use this as
an opportunity
information,
today.
and if there's not any real opposition that you want to have a formal debate and a vote on, then I will take that as direction to proceed to city council and with the contract.
And we can do that at this meeting.
If you want to just give me your general comment, Jess, but if a member says no, we should have a formal meeting and a formal resolution and have a special meeting, then that is certainly an option. But
Would you
there is
like-
an urgent matter here because we have to, we have the contract with Synergy.
Would you like to make a motion, Alton?
Absolutely, I would like to make a motion that we move forward and with the higher bid price and delay the project during our peak season and start the project late April or early May.
Is there a second to that?
Well,
It's not an official motion.
there is a,
We can add this.
there is a, with a 4/5 vote, we can add an urgency item if it arose subsequent to the posting of the agenda. And I could formally state that this issue did arise subsequent to the posting of the agenda. So
Right,
if
it
we
did.
want to take a 4/5 vote to add a motion to the agenda, we can do that.
I have a question. After this addition of whatever 800,000, what is going to be the total cost of the project?
The bid was about 29 million, and we're expecting some level of change orders, and with this, it'd be about 31 million.
Thank you.
So their options are you could add it as an urgency item and make a formal have a vote, or you could just give me your general direction based on our discussion.
Oh, we have a motion, so I'll
Well,
second
we have-
the motion.
we have a question.
You first need a motion to have the emergency item. So I make the motion that we have the emergency item.
And just state what that is for the record. It would be adding a motion to recommend to city council option 1 of Swinnerton.
Option B,
Joe?
option B of this one.
Option B.
Option B of the
Yes.
Swinnerton proposal.
Yes, sir.
Which is an approval for up to 800,000 in additional costs.
808,000.
I second that.
Okay. We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So we
Abstentions?
need a roll call vote because we need a 4/5 vote.
Oh, you do
to
need a
add
vote?
this.
Okay, we need a roll call, sorry.
Okay. Adams?
We've not done
Yes.
this
Breslin?
Yes.
Burke?
Yes.
Butillo?
Yes.
Clarkson?
Yes.
Dada?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Hedrick?
Yes.
Jones?
for you. Yes.
Pye?
Yes.
Reason?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so it's added, so now you can have a debate and vote.
All right, now that it's added. So Aftab, we go back to you.
Yes, sir.
So now we need a motion.
Restate the motion.
Yeah, you need to restate your
I'd like to
motion.
make a motion that we add up the up to $800,000 to delay the project and start the project sometime end of April or May.
And it's 808,000, is that?
March. The actual start date is,
Well,
In spring.
we would start fabricating the bag system right away. But
Yeah,
the
that part is
on-site
fine, but
concrete
on-site.
ground
But the
till March.
construction, the major
Late March, early
construction
April.
won't
offsite.
begin till
March
spring.
is the start.
Okay, late March.
Second to that?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion?
So if we say $808,000 and you come in at $900,000, that means we have to come back. Would we be better just to say at the discretion of the executive director of the airport and the city manager, but that amount to be.
We already gave, the city council already gave the city manager
Up to
discretion
1.5.
up to 1.5 million.
Right.
So that discretion already sits there. And again, we could have just moved forward with this, but when I saw this rolling forward, I thought you'd want to know about it.
And although I appreciate your extra latitude on the authority, I'm okay not doing, I prefer not to, because any expenditure over that, I want to make sure you're fully aware of.
Okay.
But then should it be 1.5?
1.5 is already approved, so
No, I got it.
we're saying that we don't need approval for additional dollars. We've already given David, or Dr. Reddy that authority. So approving the 808 is the action. If there are additional dollars, Dr. Reddy's saying he wants to come back to you anyway, even though he already has the authority.
So the motion remains the same, so how presented. Are you still seconding?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Quick comment.
Yes.
It's not on any of the financial stuff. Can we at some point rely on the city to communicate this on a concerted basis to the community at large? Because it's not just tourists this is going to impact, but the residents of the Coachella Valley.
Sure, so we certainly will be on the next city council agenda as an update, so we certainly have that form.
But we will use social media next
When we
spring
reach that
in an
point.
effort to
Oh, you
keep
mean the
people
actual
apprised of
construction,
any
yes.
inconveniences.
Oh, yeah, that'll be a large educational,
Yes.
Yeah.
and it's gonna be a lot easier to do that after season than during season.
But we'll be doing
Yeah.
ongoing press releases.
Press releases and so forth, absolutely, and signage and all the appropriate stuff.
Is there a call for the question?
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? You don't need a roll call on that,
No,
just
that's
on the
fine.
urgency
Thank
one,
you.
just on the urgency.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both to JR and to David. Very good. All right, that was quite a city manager report, David.
Very good one.
Yes, thank
Productive
you.
one.
Let's see, budget and finance report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Just to tag on the last comment, when this whole item with the takeaway project went to council in July, there was a very detailed budget analysis, and this change, although it's very significant, still fits well within the parameters of what was approved and the funds available. So rest assured that we have the funding, and the project will clearly continue, and it doesn't create any undue changes with any other budget item at this point. So looking at where we're at through September, we have the 4 revenue streams, of course. Passenger facility charges are up about 7% compared to last year at this time. And just to note, everything that we do here for the enterprise fund clearly is derived from the passenger activity, passenger growth, and we want to keep the passengers flowing as smoothly as possible, as we just discussed. So the CFCs are up 7%. The PFCs, the passenger facility charge that we get from the airline, $4.50 is up nearly 5%. General revenues for the airport compared to last year are up over 21%. So we've seen a very strong first quarter for the airport activity, and we anticipate that to continue as we go through the remainder of the season. When we go to page 3, just a summary of our cash balances. Again, with the ticketer funds, the CFCs, the customer facility charge, and rental cars. The first budget item, we have had no expenses. We have awarded a design contract to Gensler Corporation for beginning the rental car project, so we will begin to see some expenditures for the CFCs begin to trickle in. The PFCs, the Fund 410, again, just revenues at this point. We have not made any bond payments on the new bonds that were just issued at the end of the last fiscal year. And the M&O fund, the General Airport Fund, we're at nearly $1.3 million surplus, which is very unusual for this time of year, considering the fact that our expenses typically outpace our revenues for the first quarter. This is a very good news story. And then the capital projects, the only revenue stream we have for capital is our AIP funds, and at this juncture, we have not started the ticket wing project, so we have had no expense to get reimbursed from the AIP revenue, so those have not begun to trickle in yet. So the expenditures are merely capital improvements that we've made out of the airport reserves. And looking at the remainder of the reserves, they continue to grow. We have very healthy reserve balances for the CFC at $22.4 million, which will be used exclusively for the rental car project, passenger facility, which will be used for the next bond payment of $2.2 million. Capital reserves continue to grow, and the airport 415 fund, again, continues to grow. We will be discussing some of the changes from that fund. As you recall, the insurance premium for the earthquake insurance will be coming out of airport reserves. And as will the, one of the items that Mr. Nolan's going to be talking about, the Caltech project, we will be taking revenues from the reserve funds as well.
Wait till then.
Any questions? I would say doing an incredible job, as a matter of fact, moving forward. That's really a nice, strong position to be in the budget. Very strong indeed. Moving on to the discussion and action items. We have one action and two information item. 11A is the ordinance for noise committee. And it's the one we asked, I think, Jeff, you want to kind of lead a little discussion before I turn it back over to Mr. Nolan?
Sure. You should have two memos about this topic in your package. One was distributed with the regular package. It's the staff report. General, that's a good question. Who prepares these staff reports? I wasn't. You do? Okay. You also have a memo that I did for the noise committee itself, and that goes into a little bit more detail about these proposed changes that we're suggesting should be made to the ordinance that creates the noise committee. As you know, any sort of authority we have as a commission comes from this ordinance. There's a particular ordinance with regard to the noise committee. The rest of the committees are designated by the chairman, but when this was drafted, which was back in the mid-90s, they felt it important to have a ordinance in particular for the noise committee. So it's the only committee that has an ordinance dealing with its powers. So, but it's out of date. It was drafted about 25 years ago, and it makes some references that are no longer relevant. So we discussed changes to it, and the committee suggested changes to the ordinance. There's a markup of the ordinance attached to your materials that shows you the changes that the noise committee did vote on and did accept. We tried to keep the ordinance as close as possible to the one that exists now. Didn't want to change it too much. We wanted to make minimal substantive changes, and that's what we've attempted to do. Of course, only the City Council has the authority to change the ordinance. So Noise Committee has approved this, and we're looking now for the approval of the full commission to send it on to City Council. Initially, the Noise Committee considered eliminating the ordinance altogether, just making the noise committee like every other committee, just appointed by the chairman. But we thought it was important to maintain the noise committee ordinance. It wouldn't look right if we eliminated it. It was important back in 1995, and I still think it's important that we have an active noise committee for citizens to express any concerns they have about noise issues. A lot of this town is really affected by noise issues. I just moved from a neighborhood that's adjacent to the airport to one that's under the flight path, so I'm affected by it. And a large portion of this city and Cathedral City and some of the other desert cities are affected by airport noise, so I think this is important. There are basically 6 changes that we're suggesting to the ordinance.
On the screen here.
The first one is relatively minor, just changing the designation in the ordinance from the subcommittee to a committee, just to make it consistent with the rest of the committees of the Airport Commission. That should be non-controversial. The second one is eliminating references to an organization called ROAR. ROAR was an organization that was existing back in 1995 when this ordinance was adopted. It was residents organized against runway extension. And apparently that was a big issue 25 years ago. These runway extensions were completed, what, 20 years ago now? So, yeah, so that organization is no longer in existence. We've researched it with the city clerk's office, and No one believes that it's still around. So we eliminated the references to roar in the statute. The third area where we wanted to make changes was the cities of residence. It used to be, the current ordinance requires that all 5 members of the noise committee be from Palm Springs. We're changing that around so you have a little bit more flexibility. That a majority of the 5 noise committee members are still from cities that are most affected by noise. 2 from Palm Springs, 1 from Cathedral City, and then the other 2 can be anybody. There are other cities are affected. I think Palm Desert even.
Palm Desert, Rancho Mirage, and part of the flight.
Yeah, so we thought it would be appropriate to give a little bit more flexibility there. The fourth change has to do with the appointment of members. The way the ordinance is set up, the mayor is supposed to get involved in this and appoint members, which we didn't think was really necessary, that this committee members could just be appointed like every other committee, that the chairman of the commission should appoint those. So that's another change. There, in the original ordinance, there is a provision that a certain number of the members of the committee needed to be people who live within a certain distance from the airport, and that was measured by a contour or a community noise equivalent level, and I'm not sure that we still use those or that would really be feasible. We may not have anybody on the commission or on the commission at all who's in those areas, so we just made it a preference that be given to committee members being within certain contour levels, which I believe are compatibility zones, A through E, as identified on the airport compatibility plan. I think that's updated continuously, so that would be a preference for the chairman to exercise, but there's no requirement there in case there are no commission members who are in that area. And then the final thing was the number of meetings. We had a discussion, the current ordinance requires 4 meetings per year, so 1 every quarter, basically. We had a discussion about whether that was, too many, but we decided that was a good number to have. It gives the citizens an opportunity to voice any concerns they have. And we decided to make that a regular meeting every 3rd commission meeting and have it immediately after commission meetings.
And we can call a meeting when necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
Something unusual happens at the airport.
Yeah, we can have as many meetings as we
We'll address it.
So, those are the proposed changes that the noise committee did approve, and now we're looking for the approval of the full commission so that it can be
Sent
sent on to the city manager to be considered by the city.
Thank you, Jeff. It was a very good summary, and thank you to the committee for identifying this to bring it up to date. Tom, did you have anything to add?
I don't.
Okay. Well, then, Jeff, did you, as chair, want to make a motion?
Okay. I make a motion that we adopt these proposed changes to the noise committee ordinance.
And send to the city council.
And send to the city council.
The second was? Okay, Bill? And the second, Bill Dees. All right, any further discussion? Call for question? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
We'll get that on the next council meeting. It seems very reasonable changes.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, great.
Thank you for doing that, Jeff.
Sure.
Some of these ordinances, they fall through the cracks because, it's not that we don't need them, but the changes aren't vital, so until somebody takes the lead like that. So thank you, these are very reasonable.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for your leadership on that one, Jeff. We move to 2 other items. The new art status report, this is an information item.
It is, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Last meeting, the Airport Commission voted in favor of recommending a new piece of art in the terminal. City Council has approved that. One change that you should be aware of, when the artist came out very excited, and in fact, from Chicago originally and from Milwaukee, so we just had a great time. We went down to the regional concourse, and looking at the space, there were 3 alternatives they had. They could put it in the center, they could put it around the columns and elevate it in that elevated space. And they are absolutely excited about the opportunity to have 4 pieces of the art as opposed to 1 to spread the whole theme of the art in what is considered a very dull ceiling in the regional concourse. If you go down to the regional, there's nothing there but tiles and a window. So what they want to do, and which council approved, was to elevate if you remember the art, it had the conversion of the balls. By the way, these are actually, I believe they're ping pong balls on string, different color. So we have, he has engineered a way to be able to place this, and if you look on the other wall, so as you walk into the regional, you'll look on the left and see it on the right elevated, and on the left, 2 different spaces. And they love it because it really brings the art out, as opposed to sitting in the middle and somebody, the crowds around it not being able to see and appreciate it. Very excited about it. In the long run, it's actually going to save them some expenditure, because what they didn't anticipate, if you have it sitting in the middle, some kids coming up and grabbing the balls, throwing them over.
That's great.
Eating them, whatever it may be. They don't have plexiglass. He was shocked at the cost of plexiglass. This way he doesn't have to do that. So that's more an update. It's going to be exciting, and he is working on manufacturing there. And I'll probably get up on the lift with him to install it. So that'll be fun to try.
It is great. That's a great resolution. I like that.
Yeah.
It's my idea to move it to the regional concourse to begin with, but I like the idea of elevating it. That really works. What about the terminal modifications?
Well, the terminal modifications project, not the ticketing modification. If you recall, just a long story short, during the major bit of the ticketing project, in an effort to get the minor modifications in the terminal completed, we did a bid alternate that would remove the walls next to the checkpoint, relocate the police office from that hallway, widen that beautiful hallway, you remember that, JR, to expose the windows and create a better waiting room,
Right.
and to build between the back restaurant and the front restaurant a new police office that is strategically located to the checkpoint, and to add a couple more ticket counters. Swinnerton, in their infinite wisdom, bid that at an extraordinary cost. It was more than 2 to 3 times the original estimate. So we declined that bid alternate, and we went back out in the street immediately. The city procurement did a fantastic job with that. We went out in the street, and the bid came in at $1.4 million. Unfortunately, the architect's estimate from Chiaffi Architects, locally well-known, very good at estimating, was about $850,000. So there will be an overage there because we desperately need this project. And when I asked the architect, I said, what on earth is going on in the industry where we had the same thing happen on the project, I think. And Joe, I think you could, do you want to speak to that for a moment? Why is this happening in the industry? We have skilled architects and designers.
Most of you are aware, it's a red hot economy, and very competent firms are missing their engineering estimates. We miss them too, because the inflation is so great, and the contractors are so busy, they bid high, because they know they're going to be paying the labor premium, full employment.
So let me speak to the logistics of this project. We're pushing as hard as we can push. The contract has been awarded. We've had a meeting with them already, and if all goes well, we're going to start the demo at night really soon. What we're trying to attempt to do, because of the first failure of the expense was extraordinary, we need to widen that security checkpoint, because we're hitting extraordinarily historic numbers. And by moving our operations office out of there, they will actually be able to add a 6th lane on top of the 5. You're a 2 million passenger. We want to be able to keep that throughput moving. So we're attempting to do that by December in hopes, obviously, to accomplish that. But in the long run, when it is accomplished, it will ease the pressure on the checkpoint, help mitigate the spillover into the lobby, and just help us deal with the appreciable growth that we're having here now. Mark, explain where the additional funds are coming from.
So the total project cost, as Tom mentioned, for the construction is $1.4 million. In addition, council authorized a $300,000 construction administration contract. So the total project is $1.7 million. We had budgeted $800,000 for the project. So in addition to that, we're using $172,000 from our unrestricted capital that was programmed for unidentified projects. A portion of the project is making improvements to the rental car counters and expanding the space down there. So $85,000 will be used from the CFC fund, and the remaining $650,000 will come from our capital reserves.
I forgot to mention one fourth element of that is to expand the car rental counters. Maybe I did that. And we're relocating the existing doors, shifting that over. so that from the inside, that'll allow us to create more counter space. And that'll be, those 4 to 6 positions will be a tremendous. If you recall, airline check-in is about half the time, if not less, than a car rental because of all the launches, so that's tremendous. Here are some photos, by the way, during peak time in the bag claim. That's why we're doing the car rental project, is to move those car rental offices out of there. This is the wall I referred to. The police are actually behind that. And once we open that up, the original Wexler design didn't include walls covering up that view. So here's that corridor during some peak times and so forth. So that's why we're excited. Still a great expenditure with big returns on investment on this for public convenience and efficiency, Mr. Chairman.
So this was an information item. Are there any questions of Tom and or Mark, budget? It's just an information for us?
That's
Okay.
all.
All right. No comments, no questions? Okay, I'm not going to push it. Oh, I knew there would be. Peter?
I just want to be sure, I think we covered it, but I think from here on forward, we're going to get monthly updates.
Yeah.
on-
That's
As
going
we
to come.
always do.
Yeah.
As we always do.
That's going to come under the executive director report.
As we always have.
And I think that was in my comments too, that we'll be getting monthly updates. All right, if there are no further questions on this specific item, let's move to the executive director and staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicles, status of that, Ulysses? Leave the lights up.
We are working with procurement right now to finalize the final bid document, hopefully be released here in What those are your fire trucks?
Yeah, aircraft rescue and firefighting, not the same as structural. This is a more specialized. In our airport capital improvement program, you recall approving that in the budget and to move forward because the trucks are old and it's time to replace that. Supported, of course, by an FAA grant. Pavement condition inventory is going to be done. We just awarded that contract. That means they're going to go out and do non-destructive testing of all the airfield pavements to provide a baseline of over 12 million square feet of pavement. Right. That helps us with the maintenance of the program. I pointed out last time that dark area out there is just honey for us because that helps preserve the useful life of the pavement. Passenger boarding bridges, that specification will be developed. There'll be a bid alternate for a new bridge as opposed to a rebuild, and the commission and the council will evaluate at that time.
We had that discussion.
Yes, we did. Airport concessions, as you know, I think the city manager hit on that, and more to come on the airport concession. Parking, the parking contract is up. So we are going to put together essentially the same RFP, go back out on the street and let it compete nationwide and see what we can do about parking. Airport use and lease agreements are actually terming out, and we have begun negotiations with all of our airlines in regards to that to see what they're willing to do. The consultant believes that there could be some additional language. The document was about 20 years old, so we need to update that and perhaps look at other ways to get more latitude on capital improvements. Car rentals, the car rental project, Gensler Architects is on board. We're excited about that. We're assembling their team. The first thing out of the box is to get together with the stakeholders. The assistant city manager will be intimately leading this, and the car rental partners have to provide all of their input. The original master plan estimates did a forecast that's about 4 to 5 years old already. Times have changed. We've got the introduction of rideshare and other dynamics in the market. So they're going to, part of the scope is to reanalyze that and be able to say, are those master plans projections accurate? Do they need to be bumped up or down as for the size of that facility? The size will dictate the cost as well. We've got about $23 million built up in CFC, and the state allows us authorization to leverage that even higher to pay for the project. United Airlines has the Newark service that they added. They will discontinue that in January.
Discontinue which service?
The Newark service.
Oh, they are?
Yes. It's not showing on the schedule.
Okay.
And when not?
I was just at a meeting with another airline at their corporate headquarters. There were some esteemed consultants there, so I took advantage of some free, but they think that there was too much capacity added. If you recall, we had the JetBlue and so forth. I'm not sure I agree with it, but the reality is United didn't see that the return was a viable one, so.
Well, I think you also need to put into the equation of the max grounding, which has a huge impact. Carriers shifting, to different destinations. I mean, just as an example, Southwest, who has some 50 million passengers in Newark, totally pulled out of Newark.
Yeah.
Totally pulled out. And that's all due to the MAX grounding. So, and, you know, as the grounding progresses, we still don't know when the aircraft will go back into service. That may translate into other interruptions elsewhere.
Hopefully year end.
Hopefully what, off top?
Year end.
Year end.
Max,
Yeah, that doesn't look like it after, I mean, and right now there's big discussions and sort of the schism between the FAA and other international regulators. And so we'll have to see, but it is not certain because they just have discovered other problems, you know, on the autopilot and things like that.
but the CEOs, Boeing CEOs incentive is now tied to the MAX. So knowing that it's a huge number, you will see some drastic and fast action.
Well, let us see, because the aircraft that are grounded, you know, once they're certified by the FAA to go back in, you know, that doesn't happen overnight, because all these airplanes are pickled away, and, you know, they have to be, first of all, they have to put all the patches in, whatever is required, so they have to do that. And they have to take them out of the storage facilities.
And you have to build passenger confidence in them as well. That always happens every time.
That's just an ongoing problem, I think, we'll want.
Think positive, Peter.
Yes, I will.
All right.
I might have a question. Can we
Well, let me
get-
ask, okay, was it related? Go ahead.
Yes, can we get some data on the load levels and capacity of those United flights from the season?
We intend to reach out for them. They
Okay.
do not submit that on a per flight basis, they submit it as an aggregate.
I'm talking of
For
the season
Newark.
that passed, when it was coming, so they have to provide that.
That's what he's gonna ask.
As an aggregate for the airline, we have those load factor stats.
Okay.
Okay. Tom, do you have more on your report?
I do not.
Okay, are there any further questions of Tom and his report?
May I ask one question? Perhaps it's a bit naive, but why is it that parking is subcontracted out? What is the advantage to it? Just a quick,
It's
just
been,
as background. I was
it's
trying to
been
understand.
that way, I don't think the city has ever managed it themselves.
Well, it just comes down to, obviously, we'd be paying city wages and
Yes,
city benefits.
and fringes, yeah. It's less expensive,
Okay.
more efficient, and you
I
can
figured
change
that was the
contracts.
answer.
Might apply for one of those jobs.
Available.
Any other questions for Tom relative to his report? Did everybody have questions and they understand kind of the capital projects, moving forward, timelines and the rest? So, comfortable? Comfortable? Okay. Let's move on then to commissioner requests and reports. Are there any commissioner requests or reports? Jan?
I have a question, and I'm not asking for the motion to be restated.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
We said, I'm going back to the motion we made, $890, and I understand Dr. Reddy is going to come back to us if it's above that. Would we have to make another motion?
This,
He already has, the city council already gave him approval for up to 1.5 million. We didn't technically have to come here to have you give us a motion on the 800,000. We just wanted you to know what was happening. It was getting complex. We knew you knew part of it, but we didn't want you to all of a sudden hear about this big change
Right.
in this contract without us telling you first.
which, by the way, we appreciate very much you taking the time to come
It
in.
was getting messy. We wanted you to know about it.
I'm clear.
Okay, so Jan, that answers your question. Jeff, you had a,
Just wondered what the status was of the committee that was considering desert landscaping. Is that?
Oh, the sustainability, yes.
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 Sustainability commission.
We have
Committee.
the sustainability manager for the city has reported there might be a grant from the Desert Water Agency for some conversion of grass. We have appropriated a certain amount of funding to get somebody on board. We're working with a local architect to assemble a team if it's satisfactory to proceed with modification of the specs. from a priority standpoint, right now, the focus is on the projects, and we are certainly going to have to work toward the sustainability. But that is good news about the Desert Water Agency, more to come on that.
But we still have a committee that's considering those issues.
Yes, when the selection is made internally about the credentials, it will be brought to the committee, and we'll talk about scope and so forth.
Okay.
But right now, we don't have that, so we can't do that.
Any further commissioner requests or
Yeah, may
comments?
I be so bold and inquire about what progress we are making on the hiring of
Yes.
the marketing
Yes.
director?
I was just gonna ask that
The
myself.
comments that were provided were incorporated from those that submitted them. It's been given to HR. HR is now in the meet and confer with the union on the position. As soon as that has been meet and conferred, then they can proceed with the recruitment.
I'll follow up on that, Peter, to make sure that's pushed along.
Okay,
While
thank you,
we,
Tom.
while we are on this subject, Dr. Reddy, a question to you. Knowing that the position won't be filled till early part of next year, is it possible, and we discussed it at our last meeting, that we might be able to, or the commission request that we might be able to retain a search firm for the position, knowing that the dollars won't be any more than what's already budgeted?
You know, yes, I actually wanted to proceed down that road, and what the feedback I was getting from my personnel director is that this is, he almost thinks it's going to be hard to get a search firm to do this because it's at a lower position, it's not a high enough position. Now, that's not to say we can't, so let me look at that. It's usually about $20,000 to do a search firm. So let me, in earnest, explore that possibility, because I would agree it's probably time to have a search firm to get the best candidate. And then, of course, certainly when we do the subcommittee, I think you should be right in there with the review and the
Marketing committee,
recommendation.
I think the reason AFTUP is bringing it up now is we were told by Tom in our marketing committee meeting that if we go the route of a search firm, we need city council approval. And we want to be sure that we have it, if we go that route or not, but not to delay it any further.
Well, okay,
That was our discussion.
not to contradict the airport director, but I will just a little bit. He's corrected that council does need to approve expenditures, however, at 25,000. And so this will probably be under 25, so I'd probably be able to do it without council's approval. But that process would add another month and a half to it, but that may be well worth it.
But you'll check into this for us, Dick, and
Yep.
maybe kind of give us an update.
Yeah,
at the
we
next-
will pursue, actually, what my goal is to actually have a recruiting firm under contract and moving forward by the time we get to your next meeting, so we can get it moving.
But
So
did
I'm
we
not doing
put
that.
the ad, or as was discussed regarding in one of the airport
It
publications?
will be, yes, but
It has to.
remember, it is a unionized, it's a collective bargain position, so now the union, because of the changes to the job description, have to approve that by agreement.
And that's the
next step.
discussion underway currently.
Until that occurs, then it
Yeah.
can't move to the next phase. That's how it works.
Wow,
Well,
I
and
just
we just
cannot
got-
believe the bureaucracy.
Well, because we
of
got
this.
caught in the middle, so the alternative, because we thought a lot about this, to make it a higher position and a higher salary with more cost, and make it an at-will, non-union position, versus where we ended up at a more reasonable cost, then that forces it into the union, and,
But I thought this was already an approved position.
no, that position went away
Years ago.
years ago.
But the position that this commission requested,
Yes.
Oh, council
going to
put it back
the
in.
1920 budget,
Yeah, council put it
was
back
to
in.
substitute the position that we lost in 2014.
It's back in.
It's back in.
It's
Yeah,
Back in,
yeah, it's
so-
back in.
But there's
And
a
was
process.
that a non-union position? Mark
No,
Keel?
Mark Keel was a collective bargain position.
Wow.
And so it has to go back to the union, even though it's
Mhm.
refilling
Yes,
this
yes,
position.
but because changes to the job description have been made, and they want to review it to make sure there's.
This is perfectly normal. I worked for the state for 30 years, and I had 4 unions representing my staff, and negotiations, any changes. This is moving along pretty well relative to what my experience was for 30 years with the state, so.
How long is the turnaround time to get the approval from the union?
That's up to
Is it,
the-
was it
it's-
weeks?
it's- we don't know.
It's
It's
up
up
to
to
the-
Let me focus,
But-
let me push that, move that, make sure that's moving.
Yeah, David said he would go back, check on the progress and push it along.
I don't see it to be any,
Yeah.
And while we're
Process.
at these positions, what about the civil engineer, where are we with that?
yeah, is the job description finalized there?
The assistant city manager, who's an engineer himself, is handling that, and he's moving as swiftly as possible.
I'll have a better update for you at the next meeting.
Great.
Hopefully we will.
That's,
along the
it's,
way.
Okay.
it's high.
So that is also going through the union collective
That I
bargaining?
don't know. There's an existing job description which likely won't change, so that doesn't require meet and confer. Again, we modified the job description, so
Are there target dates that we're looking at or moving towards?
as soon as possible. If there's processes within government that
Mhm.
has to go through, we can, it's
Well,
just the way.
there's like 47 some positions we're recruiting
Yeah.
for now.
Mhm.
Plus, we've got vacancies at the airport and other departments. We've got a potential retirement coming up. And there's a lot of dynamics with HR. And there is a process that they.
We'll move it along.
Yeah.
I'll make sure it's.
That's what we can.
Let's, David Reddy has
That's
promised to take a look at it and give us a report at the next meeting, and we'll trust David to give us the detail then. And push to the extent that you can.
Without disrupting the process.
Even if it disrupts it, he can push. Thank you, David.
Transparency, sir.
All right, let's move on. The report of the city council items is your item 14A. We're not going to go through that unless there are any questions.
Oh, I do just, for the record, if it's okay with the maker, Mr. Clarkson, of the motion, as I look at the council agenda for the 23rd, if we're going to do the airport concessions, which will be a large discussion
Right,
item.
yeah.
Also, the airport, the library relocation issue which will be a very large issue, and about 8 public hearings. So if it's okay with the ordinance on the noise, to move that to the 6th, because even though it's a very good thing and non-controversial, anything that has noise on it potentially is going to bring out a lot of people to discuss. So given the agenda on the 23rd, if you don't have a problem with it, move it to the 6th.
Of November?
Councilman Roberts will still be on the council voting it, and that'll be his last meeting. So if you don't have a problem with it, that may be moved to the 6th.
No. No, they usually have that one themselves.
But it's an ordinance, so it has.
So we'd have to.
Yeah.
May I ask Mr. Roberts how the jail?
Community may reconvene that
Then,
board.
so the election is on November the, whatever, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 4th.
You never know.
5th. And the installation is what, in December?
In December.
So, but is the council in a position that they will continue to make decisions at the November meeting? I've heard various
My
comments.
last working meeting will be the 6th.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the 7th, or whatever that Wednesday is.
Okay.
That'll be our last official working meeting is this council.
But you actually will do the work and not try to reserve things for the new city council members for the December meeting?
No, I mean, any important issues that I felt should be seen by the new council, because they'll be dealing with it, I've already asked to be moved, but by and large, it's business as usual.
Okay, all right. So is there any problem, Jeff and others, with the commission of moving this to the November 6th? I think it makes a lot of sense,
So I think it would be helpful if I came and spoke. as a citizen.
given the,
It would be very helpful if you came for questions, because the council will probably have them, as Dr. Reddy says. The word noise will bring people out, so it could be a bigger item than it looks right now.
okay.
So the concession is coming up when?
Well, the 23rd, that's the goal.
Yeah.
23rd of October?
October, yes.
Because I thought I recall that you were telling us that you were pretty sure that we needed to come up with a little more beef before it comes to the city council. Is that right?
Well, that's just for the status of the beef in the staff report. You already did your beef. You already did all the good work you needed to, and you made a recommendation. I just need to be able to articulate that now for the council.
I thought you said it wasn't enough.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So we're fine.
You're good. Thanks.
All right, okay, so that's the city council. So you've got all of that there. Any correspondence? No correspondence? No
It's in
correspondence.
the package.
Okay, receive and file the September airline activity report. And we don't have the November airline schedules, do we? No, okay. Okay. So, I always forget, does that take a motion? No, it doesn't, okay. That one's, I always forget. All right. We're down to the last item on the agenda, which is adjournment. Is there any motion to adjourn? A first and a second, all those in favor? Aye. Noes, abstentions? This was a great meeting. We accomplished a lot. Thank you, JR. JR, thank you for being here.